Although insiders close to the rapper have stated that Scrappy has been spiraling ever since Bambi left his life, fans are in complete disbelief when scary reports surface that suggest he may have reached his lowest point. And in a tragic turn of events, he supposedly attempted to end it all. Scrappy is at his breaking point because of all that has happened to him, including the betrayals, heartbreak, and unending fans are asking how it happened, whether this is truly Scrappy's last moment, and most importantly, whether Bambi will survive the tragic cry for help drama, claims that have shaken the industry. Act immediately before it's too late, and pay close attention because what we're about to tell will astound you. Scrappy was always renowned for his ability to bounce back from setbacks, always managed to find a way to keep going, but this time something was different. The weight of his sadness, the betrayal, and the loneliness had finally caused him to feel indescribable misery. Caught up with him, and according to people close to the musicians, he may have done the unthinkable. It all started when his lifelong love, Bambi, left. Their relationship had been a flurry of intense disagreements and makeup, but this time the split felt irreversible, and Scrappy allegedly told a close friend late at night, "I just don't know how to move forward." His friends observed that his once lively presence had changed to cryptic messages, his social media sites had become abnormally silent, and his normally brilliant energy had faded, indicated his intense emotional turmoil, saying that everything feels empty and that nothing makes sense now that she is gone. Scrappy allegedly shared a number of Instagram stories, each of which was darker than the last, but not least. A post in particular grabbed everyone's attention with the words, "What's the point of it all?" scrawled in white on a dark screen. Within minutes, his fans sent encouraging messages into his direct message service, telling him to keep going. But they were unaware that things were far worse than they had expected. Scrappy's closest friends and family were aware that he was having difficulties, but no one realized how severe his pain was. Over the past several weeks, his conduct had become increasingly erratic, and he stopped going to the biggest warning sign was that he started drinking heavily, something he had previously pledged never to do. He also skipped important meetings and even abandoned some of his closest friends. When they sensed something was badly wrong, he kept repeating, "I don't think I can do this anymore. I'm tired," according to one of his old friends, who requested to remain nameless. "I attempted to help him change his thinking, but I could see it in his eyes." As the days passed, his mother and relatives were increasingly worried. "I just want this suffering to stop, buddy." One of the persons who was most concerned was Mama D. "I went to see how he was doing, but I didn't recognize him because his house was in disarray, with bottles everywhere and the blinds drawn firmly as though he in a devastating Instagram live session." She became the first to publicly acknowledge that something was badly wrong and asked supporters to send prayers, saying, "Y'all, I need you. I don't know what's going on, but my son isn't himself. I haven't seen him this low before, and I'm terrified for him." Then came the night that changed everything. "I need you all to cheer him up." According to reports, one peaceful evening, Scrappy barricaded himself in his house and would not answer his closest friends. Sensing that something was severely wrong, a miss drove to his house and knocked on the door to get him to let them in. But after what felt like a lifetime, one of them made the decision to call for assistance. "We were yelling his name." Then when authorities and paramedics forced their way inside and found Scrappy, I swear I felt like my heart was about to explode because we had no idea what was happening beyond those walls. There were pills everywhere, a bottle of liquor toppled on the table, and an unconscious man lying limp on the floor. It was clear that this was a frantic call for assistance, and the medics responded right away, began to steady him while his companions stood there, their eyes frozen. One of them later confessing that we kept shouting his name, hoping he would open when the news came. Broke social media was ablaze with worried fans sending supportive and loving words in the hopes that Scrappy's story wasn't over. But the true issue remained if he would survive, and if he, as Scrappy, was taken to emergency care. Facts of what had happened that night started to emerge. He had been going into a downward spiral for weeks, so did this serve as the wake-up call he needed? even close friends, but none understood how hopeless he was. According to one source, he was buried in his own thoughts every day, discussing how he felt unworthy and that no matter what we informed him that he couldn't hear us since his thoughts were already set. The medics made every effort to keep him stable, but the situation was dire, and it was reported that he had ingested the toxic combination of Bambi was observed arriving at the hospital in evident agony, blaming the medical personnel for the drugs that caused it to be erased against time, and for his loved ones, those minutes seemed to last forever. Information on her son's health. Today's tragic story begs the crucial question of whether Scrappy will truly be able to begin a new chapter in his life and figure out how to survive without. Do you believe Scrap will have the will to move on? Or is there still chance that he and Bambi will be reunited? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Bambi or have this heart permanently lodged in? Please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications below if you want to remain up to date on all the most recent drama. This will ensure that you never miss a story, and his admirers are still concerned. Despite their past relationship with Rocky, Bambi was devastated by the news, according to reports, and social media is awash with prayers and support for him. Wanted this for Scrappy, and she was completely shocked when an insider revealed that she might not have been with him any longer. But that didn't mean she stopped caring. Instead, she felt bad, considering that maybe if fans were also quite distressed, and social media was inundated with messages of concern that included hashtags like, if she had handled things differently, he wouldn't have gotten to this point. As we await further information, a popular rapper's tweet, "Pray for Scrappy," is going viral nationwide. Some celebrities have even taken to their platforms to share their condolences and send their "we need to check in on our people" who are praying for Scrappy right now. Support mental health is real, you know. But inside the hospital, it was a struggle for survival while everyone else tried everything they could. They explained that while Scrappy had a long road to recovery, the next few hours were critical because if he didn't, the world would be saying goodbye to yet another. Fans, friends, and family were holding their breath, praying that Scrappy would wake up, but dawn broke the awful tension in the waiting room far too soon. Maddie D, his mother, was by his bedside at the very end, checking his vitals. Her heart was broken to see her son in such a vulnerable position, and she had prayed endlessly. Yet even as the world outside the hospital had exploded in chaos, and she understood that this war was far from over. Scrappy lay in the hospital bed, his body weak and his mind feeble. Pained and remorseful, the room was strangely quiet save for the steady beep of the monitors, which the child clung to as though he were a permanent threat. After fans, celebrities, and fellow musicians turned to social media to spread the word about Scrappy's suicide attempt, the internet was flooded with words of sympathy, concern, and conjecture. One post stated asking where Bambi was when he needed her the most was more accusatory than the next. The blame game had begun, and fingers were pointing in all directions. Bambi herself had been caught in the storm. Reporters were pursuing her, asking whether she had spoken to Scrappy before the event and whether she knew how much he was going through. But Bambi stayed silent and refused to be pulled into the turmoil in the back of her mind. She was having emotional difficulties, and Yale observed that she had pushed him too far and been too aloof during their previous conversation. Tortured her, but she was aware that she couldn't alter the past. At the same time, Scrappy was going through a tough moment, and his mind was racing with memories as he drifted in and out of consciousness. Witnessed memories of his time spent with Bambi, including their arguments, laughing, and love, which had shrunk to ashes. He also saw Mama's worried face and Diamond's fear. Hours stretched into days until Scrappy slowly recovered his look when she found him, the paramedics rushing to help him, and darkness, a deep abyss that threatened to engulf him whole. Later, a therapist was called in to help him deal about the mental scars, which were far more terrible than the physical ones. At first, the pain nearly took over his life. Refused to respond to the queries right away, using words like "I'm fine," "man, just a rough patch," and "I'm not a fool," as she had seen her son at his lowest point and understood that. Mama D softly stroked his hand and whispered, "I know it hurts, baby, but you have to find a way to live for yourself, not for Bambi, not for anyone. Pretending wouldn't help him. You had to let it out. Otherwise, just for you." The words were enticing and full of truth, and Scrappy's eyes were watery from unshed tears. "I'm not sure how I'll manage without her, mother. Every day feels empty, but I'm just going to." As the days passed, more individuals, including his close friends, coworkers in the field, and even folks he hadn't spoken to in years, came to see him. The greatest surprise, though, was when Bambi eventually arrived at the hospital. The room fell silent as she walked in, and her words, "We need you to hear Scrappy matter," were all the same. Bambi took a big breath before adding, "Scrappy, I never wanted this for you." His voice was horsey, and when he responded, he said, "Why does it feel like you?" Scrappy's heart pounded in his chest as their eyes connected. He had dreamed of this moment and envisioned 1,000 possible situations. Did his words carry years of tortured love and longing that were unreadable? Because love isn't intended to be toxic, Bambi sighed and looked down, thinking of what he would say if he ever saw her again. "I never meant for you to feel this way, and I'm never meant for you to," she said. Scrappy's emotions were a tangled mix of wrath, grief, and longing, and she turned away, blinking back tears. "Then why did you leave, believe me, if you knew I couldn't survive without?" Her comments were like a strike to the gut. He wanted to tell her that she was mistaken and that they couldn't have worked things out, but he knew how to make it better. "Why did you let me go?" Knew in her heart that she was correct. Their love had been intense but damaging for a long time. Their history was too full of unfinished talks and whispered words. Difficult to resolve in a single evening, Bambi finally contacted her. "I'm not sure what will happen next, but I do know one thing. You can't abandon Scrappy in this manner. Are needed, you are loved." Scrappy gulped hard, and tears clouded his vision. "Why does it still hurting so much?" Bambi gave him a gentle squeeze on the hand, reminding him that healing takes time and that you must let. As she stood up to leave, Scrappy sensed a shift within himself. It could have been closure, or it could have been the door closing behind her. He took a long breath, feeling the weight on he wasn't quite okay, but for the first time in a long time, he felt that maybe one day he could be. His chest was a bit lighter than before. This could have been acceptance, or it could have been the beginning. He sat in his dark chamber, feeling the weight of his feelings and the emptiness that had come with the start of a new chapter in which he learned to live for himself, even if it meant learning how to do it without her. Devoured him since Bambi departed, and his phone was constantly ringing with messages from the once lively Scrappy, who was famed for his energy and charisma, now weighing down on him like a crushing force. Everyone was frightened and asking inquiries as friends, family, and fans entered, but none of them could sense that he was now staring blankly at the walls while he drowned in memories of the love he had. Mama D had tried everything, including calling, visiting, and even making Scrappy sit down and discuss his feelings, but nothing seemed to ease his suffering. The idea of he would have been a fighter throughout his life, overcoming barriers and taking on difficulties head-on, but this time was different. Bambi's decision to move on and live her life without him tore him apart piece by piece. Wasn't a fight he knew how to win, and the rumor began when Scrappy posted a mysterious message on social media. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, Scrappy contacted Bambi, and despite Bambi's sympathy, his voice faltered as he expressed his feelings honestly. "I don't know how to do this without you," he added, acknowledging that his heart was racing. Because Scrappy remained steadfast, the internet erupted with fans and friends conjecturing that Scrappy had been dealing with severe depression and that the situation had become clear. The connection ended, and Scrappy sat there, his hands shaking and his phone shaking, feeling lost and irreparably damaged. That's when he made the decision that would astonish everyone. After getting a series of concerning texts, Scrappy's close friend and fellow rapper Diamond showed up at his house the next morning, waving to everyone who cared about him. What she found, he was barely conscious. His face was pale, his body was weak, and empty bottles were scattered all over the floor. a frightening testament to his desperation, and Pemic Diamond dialed 911. This sent a chill down her spine. Paramedics arrived minutes after, rushed Scrappy to the hospital as her hands began to shake and she begged for help. The news spread almost instantly, and admirers flooded in. Facebook with encouraging and supportive comments in the hospital room, where Scrappy was asleep and the machine that was keeping track of his vitals was beeping continuously. Mama D would not leave her hands by Scrappy's side, clenched together, praying silently, "Lord, don't take my baby." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she expressed her anguish at witnessing her son in such a vulnerable state, supporting the music industry. As the medics worked around the clock for hours to calm the situation, friends, and even his former partners came forward to show their love and worry for him. The room was filled with relief when, at last, there was movement, a sluggish blink, and a tiny mumble, and everyone was waiting for a sign that Scrappy would recover. However, the battle was far from finished. Due to the deep emotional wounds and the agony of losing Bambi, which hovered over him like a black cloud, Scrappy's journey to rehabilitation would be lengthy and challenging. However, in that moment, surrounded by love and support gave him hope that he might be able to return. Scrappy lay in his hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with feelings and the weight of what had just happened. His body felt weak and worn out from the trauma, but the pain in his chest had nothing to do with the events that had set in and the near-death experience that had shocked not only him, but also everyone who loved him. With Mama D sitting beside him and gripping his hand, she said, "What were you thinking, Scrappy?" Her eyes were filled with both relief and worry. "Baby, you scared me to death." Mama D swiftly brushed away the tears that were wet in her eyes and added, "Don't you ever say that again, you have." "I was thinking, Mama." But she said, "I felt like I had nothing left. You can't let this break you because everyone loves you, including your family, friends, and fans." However, it wasn't that easy. Scrappy had to try to move for months. After losing Bam, he moved on to try to rebuild himself. But no matter how hard he tried, the void remained. He couldn't seem to open the door to this. The hospital room creaked open, and to his surprise, Bambi entered. She'd appeared uncertain, even anxious, but there was